Welcome everyone. Here is a 12-dial Delawarr Laboratories instrument. Another beautiful instrument made by Delawarr. I'm assuming that it was made in the 50s, excuse me, possibly the 60s. It's unknown. With so many of these things, you just can't get any decent information. Excuse me. Now, it's a 12-dial unit. There doesn't seem to be a power dial on it. Oh, wait a minute. Here we go. Here's a power dial, which usually it's the last dial. Now it's the first dial. Interesting. As usual, it's well made. Has a nice cabinet, the usual cabinet, which is cheap wood covered with vinyl. It has a, I thought this was the power dial. This is another dial. It has a stainless steel plate here. And notice they're not using some cheapo little circuit board, because that's really a bad way to make things. Here's the model number, TS number 5083. And it's a nice little unit. I would say that this is approximately 10 inches by 8 inches. And the dials move nice and smooth. It is non-electric. This is what you used to see a lot of, and it's probably something people should go back to. This is for a ground, because these things are considered to be, based in a radio type frequency, and to pick up frequencies and so forth, you need to be grounded. It has this kind of a particle board back on it. Pull back a little here. You can see the dial on the top again, the plate. And this has nothing on it, that side of it. And the bottom is just a standard bottom. So it's another beautiful non-electric unit. And this is where all the non-electric units start to come from. Because Delawarr was moving heavily into that and apparently getting success from it. We just, again, we just don't know. And of course, the Radionic Association in England, which he founded, I think he was one of the founding members. There is no statistical data. They're really apparently afraid to put any of this stuff out and don't want to push radionics or its history, and particularly what Delawarr did. It's kind of sad. But there is nothing, so we just don't have any decent information. Now, this is a fairly light unit. There isn't much inside of here. Again, moving towards that very simplistic actual making. And of course, this was done a lot by Ruth Drown, who took a lot of Abrams stuff and who was electrically based. Apparently, she was some sort of electrician herself, and looked at his stuff. And of course, anything that Abrams made was a box of gunk and junk. It didn't make any sense. So she just put together some simple flow pattern wiring, which has been then picked up by Delawarr and others. And this is why we have so many of these today. Now, in the 1950s, 60s, even up until the 70s into the mid-80s, using non-electric was okay. The environment wasn't as polluted, particularly with satellites, Wi-Fi, cell phones. All this stuff really affects the broadcasting of these units and tends to decrease them and even negate their energy. So, using these non-electric units, they do work, but they work very slowly, and you have a lot of failures. You need to properly amplify. Now, they didn't even have good amplifiers in the 60s and 70s. This was new technology and very expensive. And solid state was just coming in, and that was expensive. Now, people don't understand that. And of course, people, when they make something, they use what's available at that time. So to think that they're superior because they didn't have anything like lasers, amplifiers, etc. And tube amplifiers, even to this day, are very expensive. So we need to keep that in very clear in mind. So what they did was use what was available to them, obviously. What would you do today if you make something? Well, if you go back and use old parts, you're kind of stupid, but you can't even get old parts. You're going to use what's available now. And that's, of course, what they did. Now, what is available now in the 21st century? Well, a lot of very higher quality components and the lower cost of tube amplification, mini broadcast systems. All these things were not available back then. You know, people have to understand that. Particularly younger people that have absolutely no idea what the recent past was. I mean, we've only been on the internet seriously for about 20 years. That's nothing. So gaining information and whatever information you can get from Sewerpedia and all the other diarrhea mouth pundits on the web, well, is it any good? Well, that's the big question. If you're not dealing with an expert, someone who knows something, most likely you're getting garbage. And of course, how are you supposed to know?
I read it on the internet, it must be right. Hand me a lollipop.
So this is a fantastic classic unit, another one that's very difficult to find. And of course, for those that want to see the guts of it, well, how is it wired? What's inside of it? What is the pattern of the dials? Well, this is for all access and Patreon members. Here's a little tube amp right here that I use all the time. This is important. So the whole idea is that if you want to see the guts, you want longer discussions, you want to find out what makes all this tick, this is really the technology that will change the world. The basic here is certainly fun and interesting to look at, and there is a certain workable capacity to this old technology, but it's outdated, people. It's the new laser tube amplified transmitter type units that will do the job and change your life. So support the only organization really doing anything out there, the only organization doing serious research. That's IGOS. Make sure you like this video, make sure you subscribe, and also make sure you become a supporter of us and do something to change the world. People are always saying they want to help and change. Well, where are they? Here's an organization doing something, and it's about time you get off your bottom and assist.